Good afternoon, and it's an honor to be here today. Today, I'm going to talk about the role of bioplastics in circular economy. And there's three things I wanted to cover. First, bioplastics and why is it important for the circular economy and why are people talking about it now? Second, what are the favorable trends and also challenges that face this industry today? And finally, what is the potential for Thailand to be the leader in bioplastics? So sustainability is a burning platform. I think we've all read the news and we've all seen the media, especially recently, on the issues with plastic and sustainability. We've read reports that say that plastic might outnumber fish by year 2050 if we don't curb the use of plastics or if we don't change the way that we use plastics. There's a lot of photos on marine life and plastics that are very, very difficult to see. And consumers and society are becoming increasingly concerned and increasingly aware of plastics and sustainability. And as a result, governments are responding. Recently, the G20 stacked hands to agree to tackle plastic waste as a burning platform. I think there's a lot of countries in Asia that are beginning to refuse accepting plastic waste from other developed countries. And of course, there are globally cascading bans on single-use plastics even this month. And before we start to talk about the circular economy and how bioplastics play a role in circular economy, let's just align on the definition of bioplastics. If you were to look at a matrix of biodegradability, and what this feedstock or the raw material source of the plastic might be, you see that 3/4 of the matrix is actually defined as bioplastics. So bioplastic can be biodegradable, it could be bio-based, or both, right? Just because it's bio-based doesn't mean it's degradable. When most people, I guess in popular society, talk about bioplastics, people usually look at the top half of this chart. Bioplastics could be a drop-in solution or, conventional plastics just made from raw materials, bio-based materials. And these tend to be your bio-based PET bottles that Coke and Pepsi are adopting. Or bioplastics could be true bio-based and biodegradable plastics that are substituting regular conventional plastics. So these are your PBS, your PLA. I think we have speakers to talk about these plastics a little bit later in the panel. And if we were to overlay the circular economy loop on these plastics, we see that both the technical loop and the bio loop are essential for circular economy of bioplastics. If you were to look on the right-hand side, those that are non-degradable must be recycled. Otherwise, it's not a circular economy. And, conversely, those that are bio-based but biodegradable must ensure that the collection mechanism supports the composting so that it can be recycled back to earth. So I just want to emphasize that just because it's bio-based and bioplastic doesn't necessarily mean that it's a circular economy. It's a very, very important step to circular economy, but the entire value chain and life cycle still must be considered. Now let's talk about supply and demand a little bit. The total bioplastic capacity represents just less than 1% if you were to look at the total plastic production. Just think about it. It's very, very small. We're starting at a very small base. This is around 2 to 3 million tons a year. And if you were to look at the history of bioplastic projections, back in 2012, when the oil prices were high, people in society were very bullish about the use of bioplastics. They were projecting double-digit growth. Then, back in 2014, 2015, the oil prices crashed and no one was talking about bioplastics. Quite frankly, it was just economically not that feasible. But now we're at an era where the consumers are demanding solutions to different plastic issues. And we are at an era where governments are responding. And even though we're still at an era of lower oil prices, I think we're beginning to look at a critical change, in the future of bioplastics. And bioplastics are projected to be growing, albeit from a small base, but to meet these future demands going forward. And if we were to look at the application and use of bioplastics, they're predominantly still used in the packaging industry. About 60% of both type of bioplastics typically are used for packaging. So there's a lot of favorable trends defining bioplastics, but there are also challenges too. So let me go through one by one. From an economics perspective, consumers are more willing to pay, about 20% premium versus conventional. But unfortunately, bioplastics are still costly. So there needs to be a selective choice in application. If you were to look at the regulatory environment, there's a lot of single plastic bans. But bioplastics, unlike biofuels, still rely on a market-driven structure to be adopted, right? Unlike biofuels, there's no direct mandates to use bioplastics, there's no subsidies, etc. You're still reliant on consumer demand. With end users, companies are committing, like the Coca-Cola guy this morning said, to use biodegradable or recycled products going forward. But in some cases, if we were to project to the future, there might actually not be enough supply to meet all these company commitments going forward. From an environmental perspective, there's less carbon footprint based on the bio-based feedstock, but the collection stream must be managed. And technical improvements are rampant, but there might still be some challenges compared to conventional plastics. So this just shows a comparison of different prices of plastics. Bioplastics tend to be a little bit more expensive, and as a result, companies need to be very choosy about the applications that you use bioplastic for, just to make sure that it's competitive. And if we were to look at a sampling of regulations on plastic packaging, you see that most of the regulations tend to be on bans or increasing recycle rates. There tends to be only one regulation on using bio-based plastics, and those are for grocery bags in France. They mandate a biodegradable. But this actually, while it's favorable for the usage of bioplastics, there's still challenges, there's still alternatives to bioplastics. So it's not a direct impact on adoption of bioplastics. And finally, there's so many companies pledging and committing to use 100% sustainable packaging, but we need the supply to make this a reality. Imagine if all the companies suddenly switch to bio-based or recycled plastics. Where do we get the supply? So this is not just a company's problem, but it's a problem that requires collective solutions from the value chain. So what is Thailand's role? And I need to wrap up now. Thailand is very well positioned to develop the bioplastics industry. It's got very good access to raw materials, both for cassava and sugarcane. There's already a well-established infrastructure of players and associations to adopt bioplastic usage. And finally, there's a lot of political support to support the bioplastics industry. So if you can imagine a world where from feedstock to end users, people can collaborate across a bio chain, Thailand has quite the potential to be the leading country promoting the bioeconomy going forward. So this is quite an exciting time, right? The mandate is here, right? It's really up to us collectively across the value chain to find a solution for plastics and sustainability. And bioplastics is an important lever for this issue. So thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions.